Wave high your gilded banner, for Somerville leads the way. Our teams will fight for victory, for Somerville leads the way. We've got the gorgeous red to spur us ahead. Fairly in all that we do is for the trueness of the blue. We'll fight with all our might, for this is the day we all say Somerville leads the way.
I want to welcome everybody to the Somerville Stands Together forum on a municipal Green New Deal for Somerville, and really want to appreciate everybody being here tonight. We're going to have a very tight itinerary or schedule, so please stick to the time limits, and I will give you a heads up 30 seconds before you need to stop. And I want to, thanks, Willie. I want to request that everybody please, both our candidates and our members of the public and members of Somerville Stands Together, type your name, your affiliation in the chat so we know who's here. Please share your contact information if you would. And then we're going to have a welcome from Ed Halloran, and then a presentation from Judy Leff. I will say that Somerville Stands Together is not making any endorsements. So this isn't about endorsements. This is about creating a dialogue, a chance for you to learn a little bit about what Somerville Stands Together has been doing on climate change and on the city's climate forward plan, and on being shovel ready for a Green New Deal with a lens of economic and social justice, and to deal with economic inequality, which are the kind of benchmarks for Somerville Stands Together. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ed Halloran from the Somerville Municipal Employees Association. Ed?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ed Halloran, and I am the president of the SMEA for the past 14 years. Thank to all of you for being here. This is really an honor to have everybody at this forum that we're having here. So I'm a proud member of the Somerville Stands Together, as well as my union, and I want to thank them for sponsoring this event. As a union president, I'm always concerned about our members as well as the community they live in. Low salaries and high rental income ownership prices mean that owning or renting in Somerville is off the table for most, if not for all of my members. Training opportunities, meaningful career ladders are also lacking for many city workers. Many very good municipal workers have moved out of the city or moved on to better opportunities that the city has failed to provide. The pandemic has only made things even worse in many ways. And in 2018, I was asked by Joe Lynch to produce a local cable show on Somerville Media Center focused on labor issues, titled The Somerville Labor Show. So we went out and we did this, and we love what we do, and we produced many shows. And with the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020, it opened my eyes as I began to understand years and years of systemic racism at every level of society. In the 50 interviews we've conducted with guests on the show, the commonality is that our city has a rare opportunity to make sweeping changes to overcome systemic racism and deep social economic injustice. Growing up as a teenager in the 60s, I referenced a song that Bob Dylan wrote, "You better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone because the times they are changing." There's a dire need for us to move quickly and seize the moment. Many issues that were raised by our guests addressed the dangers of climate change and, again, racial, social, economic injustices, and how we as community can begin to make changes. Our guests often discuss green jobs, good paying jobs, union jobs, and transitioning workers into those green jobs. There's an urgent need for affordable health care, child care, and housing. COVID-19 exposed every weakness in our society, and the urgency has now become even greater. Greg Hill, who is an assistant producer on our show and a member of SST, invited Joe Julian, a national leader and legend in the fight for the Green New Deal, to be on our show about a year ago. Joe is the founding president of the Labor Network for Sustainability. He spent 90 minutes with us to discuss the severity of climate change and how to overcome it by bringing labor and environmental groups to develop a climate program of their own. That interview led to a show that we had just a few months later with Rand Wilson from SEIU Local 888 and Craig Altamore, president of 350 Mass. Our discussion was about the possibility of creating partnership in Somerville with labor unions, environmentalist groups, and other community organizations. At the close of that show with Rand and Craig, I asked them a question. I asked them if they thought that they could develop a program of their own for Somerville. And they agreed to work on it. And before we knew it, Somerville Stands Together sponsored a Labor Climate Change Summit that brought everyone together. 2 working groups emerged from the Labor Climate Summit, Further Forward and Shovel Ready. They have done an awesome job of envisioning a Green New Deal for Somerville. Our next speaker, Judy Leff, will go into more detail about the vision of the 2 working groups. But in closing, a new mayor and city council gives us great opportunity to move forward, and I'm confident that we can make it happen in Somerville. Thank you. Go ahead, Judy.
Hey, hi, Ed. Thanks, Ed. And hello, everyone. I'm Judy Leff. I'm a member of SST, and I represent 350 Massachusetts, the Cambridge Somerville node, as we call it, of 350 Mass, which is a climate activist group. Let's get going. What I'm gonna do is talk about the research that we've been doing in SST, particularly following the Labor Climate Summit, which Ed mentioned. And here we go. Okay, here we go. After the Labor Climate Summit, we divided into these 2 working groups. One was to look at the Somerville Climate Forward Plan that came out in November of 2018, which you'll hear more about, and to look at what changes might be made in it to reflect more the values and the goals that we in SST and the organizations we represented valued. And the second group is the Shovel Ready group, which was establishing criteria for assessing and putting forward projects that were ready to go, that would meet our values and our goals, and we're ready to go as soon as we receive state or federal funding, which we hope is coming soon when the new infrastructure bill is passed. So I'm next going to turn it over to, I'm going to go back here and turn it over to Lee, who's going to talk about the original bill and what was intended with that, the original plan, I should say. Lee?
Hi, yeah, thank you, Judy. And I just want to say welcome, and it's just really wonderful to be here with all of you and see faces known and faces I don't know, but all friends for sure. So thank you for joining here tonight. So I just wanted to speak to the Climate Forward Plan itself, both just briefly on the process, some basic content, so you get an understanding of where it come from, what it involved, what's in it, how it stands out from other plans, a couple progress points, and then some next steps that the city anticipates. And the reason I say the city is because I want to recognize that we want to recognize that there was a lot of work involved in that initial plan, the implementation, the continued facilitation, thinking about next iterations. That's all coming through the Office of Sustainability and Environment that is directed by Oliver Sellers Garcia. The community was for sure involved through working groups and a lot of that, but just we did reach out to Oliver in advance of this space because we want to recognize that all of that work, right? And that we're not speaking necessarily just guessing on what that work was. So we connected with him in advance. And so a lot of what I'll share here is actually his voice and me just sharing that. So one of the things that Oliver, and again, all of us too, want to acknowledge is that Climate Forward Plan is something to celebrate. And part of that is because it's the first climate action plan that Somerville has ever created. And part of that creation was that it was community oriented, focused, and informed. As I mentioned briefly, there were working groups that informed each of the action areas that, if you've read the plan, you'd have a sense of that. So there were working groups of community members that helped to inform those sections. It stands on several years of data-driven analysis, so this is definitely a data-driven plan. What's different about this plan as compared to primarily other municipalities' plans? One is that it was a first to center equity. So Judy will speak a little bit more detail as to ways that we feel like there could be a definite expansion and deeper focus on equity. Still, the city's intention for sure was around equity. It just didn't necessarily always show up in ways that were obvious. A quick example of that would be that the plan has details that focus on an energy efficiency program for renters. And so people may not read that and see that obviously as something related to equity, but especially in Somerville when renters have been left out of a lot of the dialogues and the focus, bringing them in would be an equitable act. So it didn't just set achievable low goals. The focus of the climate action plan in Somerville was on getting started and what's needed to do so. So not just setting some random targets that are in a lot of ways can't be achieved because of so many factors that are out of a municipality's control. It was very much about what can we do now and in the near future, and informed by what we have connection to and we actually have control over to make those things happen. And it stands out from a lot of other municipalities' plans, which have been very much target based. This is also the first plan in Mass to focus on mitigation, adaptation, and equity, again with the centering of that. So just want to applaud and honor a lot of that work. And so a couple quick things in terms of progress to lift up. One, recognizing the pandemic. Clearly it was going to set back particular aspects of this plan, but for the most part, a lot of pieces have been able to move forward, especially on relationship building regionally and with a focus on coastal resilience, which if you go into the plan, you'll see our actions within the action area 13. That has included vulnerability surveys that here in Somerville have been implemented. That process has been facilitated through partnerships with groups like CAS and SCC, and has been a continued dialogue with cities like Chelsea, Everett, and Boston. In addition, another area of progress that had been put on hold but is now ongoing is a consumption-based survey, because now the funding is available to us. Going forward, I can just speak quickly that a next iteration is intended of this climate forward plan, with that process beginning at the end of this year. So from my understanding of conversations with Oliver and the city, has been much more about a focus on even a new plan as opposed to taking this plan and amending it. So yeah, I'm happy to leave it there and turn it back over to Judy.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you for receiving all. Yeah.
So anyway, so what we did, our Climate Forward group, was look at the original plan and think about what it may not have covered in terms of what our goals were and our values, that is SST and its member organizations. So we began to develop what we called a Climate Forward plan. We looked at all 150 pages of the plan, and we saw there were a number of cases in which certain groups were not included, such as labor, tenants organizations, some community organizations representing immigrants, people of color, Black and brown people, etc. Low-income people were not covered. Their issues were not covered enough. So we wanted to broaden the participation of them in the planning and the implementation. We also wanted to look at issues of equity, social, racial, economic equity, and I'll go into that in a minute. And we wanted to look at the timing of getting to carbon neutral. So let's just, here are the three goals that we had. And for this, okay, I'll get to the third goal in a minute. The goal 2 that I wanted to mention, here are a couple examples of things that we wrote into the plan that had to do with, for example, the section on resiliency in current buildings and in new buildings. If you look at action area 2, we were very concerned with environmental justice issues, making sure that people who lived in certain neighborhoods that had borne the brunt of climate change, the bad effects of climate change and air pollution, for example, water pollution, that their issues were addressed initially. For goal 3, we wanted to move much more quickly to reaching the goal of climate neutrality. The original plan had called for a 2050 date of reaching net zero. We said it has to be quicker than that because look at everything that's happening. It's happening much more quickly than they envisioned in 2018, and the events are more severe. So let's move it to 2035, and let's establish particular benchmarks that we can reach at various times leading up to that. So at 2025 and 2030. Here, this page and the next page are examples, just visual examples of what we did in making changes to certain areas of the plan, to every area of the plan. And everything in green are things that we added in or things that we revised to more appropriately, we thought, address climate moving more, plan moving more further forward. That's one example here. On this page, we just changed the dates. We moved the dates closer in to what we thought had to happen to reach the goals that we thought were important. I'm moving ahead, and this is a really important slide. In every single section, there were 13 sections, we stress workforce implications, which hadn't been focused on in the original plan. Although I have to backtrack and say, I agree with Lee that the original plan was really quite impressive, very comprehensive, data-driven, did address equity issues. But there were things that were totally left out, and this is one example. How does all of this affect jobs and the types of skills and knowledge that people would need for these new jobs, and how they get prepared for in the skill and knowledge area. So we looked at a lot of those issues and where they had to be pinpointed in every single section. We're getting to the second, this is the second group now. Getting Somerville shovel ready. As I said, we know federal funding is coming down. Some state funding has already been allocated from the climate bill. And we wanted to identify projects that we thought met the goals that we felt were important to meet and have them ready and propose them. So the other group was working on this. And we wanted to establish criteria for these particular projects. So these are just goals of this group, which, as you can see, are very similar to the goals of the further forward group. We came up with 3 recommendations. One was to adopt project labor standards. I'll explain that in a minute. Second was to focus on building the workforce of the future, really, as I said, make workforce development a central part of the plan, and to target the project's number of areas. I'll explain that as we go. So here are some examples of project labor standards that are very important, that were not really included at all in the original plan. Prevailing wages, establishing acceptable working conditions, coming up with local hire agreements so that Somerville residents really receive most of the job opportunities, and then prioritizing locally owned businesses. Again, focusing on workforce development as a central part of the plan, doing an inventory of job requirements, skills, knowledge required for the jobs, and then doing the same thing for people who are applying for jobs. What skills and knowledge that they have, and how can we match those, and how can we develop training opportunities for people to move into those new jobs? How can we develop partnerships with other organizations to train people? How can we build on existing training programs, such as union apprenticeships that already exist? make better use of those examples that exist. How can we expand the range of people who are in the workforce? More women, non-English speaking people from lower income parts of the economy. We wanted to target the jobs for people who were losing their jobs as we moved away from, fossil fuel related production to production of new green energy. So how can we make sure that they receive their share of the jobs? And then if we get to the point where there's a federal civilian conservation corps, how can we tie in with that?
5 minutes, Judy.
Thank you. Thanks, Rand. So here are some of the project areas that we identified that we wanted to focus on. Of course, retrofitting of buildings, including affordable housing and small businesses, low carbon transportation mobility. This was done very well in the initial plan. What wasn't in the initial plan, it hasn't been in most plans, is what Biden referred to as the care infrastructure. What services do we need to build up so that people can go to work? So childcare, health and wellness care, mentioned workforce development, facilities and operation, equipment operation and management, of course, will produce a lot of jobs. And we wanted to make sure that we reclaim and purpose as much as we could materials that were being ripped out of old buildings that could be used in other ways as we move to a green economy. So our conclusion really was that this is a very exciting time for Somerville in several areas. It's a chance to rebuild the infrastructure and the economy of the city, moving away from dependence on fossil fuels that kind of damage the environment to moving to green energy, which will actually save the environment. And we want to create jobs, as many well-paying union wage jobs that can be created. And there are going to be thousands of them. So we wanted to have labor standards that would support wages and living conditions and promote social, racial, and economic equality. And the last thing that I think is very exciting is if we actually can do this or do a semblance of it, Somerville's going to become a really good example of a local Green New Deal. And it can be emulated by other cities and even around the country. I wanted to leave the last word for Greg Hill, who's going to give a really important example of what we're talking about when we talk about moving toward justice. Greg?
Thank you, Judy. I have a commentary from SST member Diane Wong, who is also a member of the Racial Justice Collaborative of Somerville. She was not able to join us this evening due to she's traveling, but I have a commentary from her that I would like to read. Recently, Ben Echevarria of the Welcome Project and I stood on Mystic Ave listening to 93 noise and watching the traffic zipping by. Then we walked across the street to the other side of the 93 overpass. Across Mystic Ave is a beautiful green space with a wide river named Blessing of the Park. The park is lovely with all lush green grass, picnic tables, and the flowing river, greatly contrasting with the bleak brick and concrete housing project across the street. Blessing of the Bay Park offers canoeing, kayaking, and nature exploring. I understand that children from the Mystic housing are not welcome to cross the road and participate in the park's amenities. A beautiful park across the road and Somerville kids do not feel welcome? How can that be? The dangerous, fast-moving traffic of Mystic Ave creates a natural/manufactured barrier that serves to keep out families from the housing complex. In addition to the natural barrier of traffic from Mystic Ave, there is a constant noise from 93, and I might add pollution. There is no sound barrier in place on the Mystic Ave side of the natural border. The noise from the highway is loud, persistent, and a danger to health and safety. Across the road, and you walk under the bridge, the noise quiets with the serene whirl of a gently flowing river. You find out why it is quiet on this side if you turn around and look up at the highway. On the Blessing of the Bay side of the Mystic Ave, there's a tall noise silencing wall all around the highway. The Blessing of the Bay Park is public, yet it is more like a private enclave for the better off section of Somerville. There should be kids from the Mystic housing enjoying the garden-like park all summer and all winter. There should be a noise barrier on the Mystic Ave side of 93 to protect the health of Somerville public housing residents. I think it's essential to have specific equity projects in mind for Somerville communities of color. Let's ensure that Blessing of the Bay Park lives up to its name. I trust all candidates will pledge to correct this racial and social inequity that's right here and make this part of their platforms. And I would also like to add that biologist Doug Brogue and the Welcome Project collaborated on a study of I-93 pollutants called Particles of the Air recently that featured I-93 pollution and its effect on Mystic Ave. And that book, I believe, that study is I believe is available through the Minuteman Library Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Judy and Lee. Now I want to give each of our candidates an opportunity. I want to emphasize Somerville Stands Together is not going to be making any endorsements in the city council races, but we wanted to give tonight we really want to just have this opportunity for education and a dialogue about the work that we've been doing, and to hear from each of you about your reactions to the plan that the work that we've done on Further Forward and Shovel Ready. And then after that, we're going to pose a question to each of you from Larry Rich and give you a very short time to respond to that, and we'll wrap up at 7:15. So I hope you'll appreciate the brevity of tonight's, the importance of brevity for your remarks. If you have questions about what you've heard or about the plan, I would urge you to put those in the chat now, and somebody from one of our working groups will follow up with you about those questions tonight so that we can finish on time. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the at-large candidates in alphabetical order to give just a 2-minute response to what you've heard from our presentation. And we will begin with the first at-large candidate by alphabetical, which would be Willie Burnley. Willie?
Hello, thank you very much for having me today. And thank you for doing all this work. Let me give just a short introduction to myself. My name is Willie Burnley Jr., candidate for Somerville City Council at large. I'm a renter on Winter Hill. I'm a former union steward, so I'm very happy to be here today with folks who support labor and putting labor in connection with the environmental movements. I'm also the son of a union member, so keeping that in the family moving forward. I know how hard this work is to do and how hard it is to make a plan like this. I remember in December of 2018, I went down to DC with thousands of young environmentalists in the Sunrise Movement, and we did a sit-in in congressional offices, and I was one of 143 young folks arrested trying to get a Green New Deal on the national stage and trying to push for a select committee to make our representatives on the national level put together the pieces of what a federal Green New Deal would look like.
1 minute.
Thank you. And, we got a lot of pushback from that. And unfortunately, we do not have at the federal level the kind of energy and praxis that exists here in Somerville around these issues. But as a resident who's fought for these issues, as a resident who's a member of Just Us Somerville, the only grassroots group that is exclusively for people of color, I know that we need to be putting environmental groups in connection with racial justice organizations, in connection with labor organizations, so that we can have equity in our movement, so that we can have economic justice. And I look forward to working with you all to advance these struggles and to use my organizing capacity to bring our community together around our shared values. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Next up will be Charlotte Kelly, at-large candidate. Charlotte?
Hey folks, I'm Charlotte. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a fourth generation renter and I've been a community organizer for the past 10 years now, mainly working on public education justice issues. One of the first major victories that I had as a young organizer was fighting to make the UMass system the first public college system in the country to divest from fossil fuels, which led to many public university systems following. So I'm really grateful to be walking in the legacy of environmental justice activists and to have done my little piece in fighting the climate catastrophe that we're living through right now. As the former executive director of a statewide community labor coalition, I know how critical it is to bring workers, to bring educators, to bring families, to bring renters, to bring residents all together to struggle alongside one another to come up with the best kind of solutions to our collective and shared problems. Often as I organized with workers, education workers specifically, and parents, the issues that we felt were often the things that brought us together, recognizing that we had far more in common than we did different, that we were able to be stronger when we struggled together rather than struggling with each other. And I think the Shovel Ready plan is a beautiful demonstration of what's possible. I think Judy said it really well. We have an exciting opportunity on the horizon, and whether or not we forge a bold path forward, actually make the kind of investments that are going to move material resources into people's hands and transform the city of Somerville so that it's a safer, more sustainable city. These are the types of opportunities that we have if we use bold plans like the Shovel Ready plan that y'all have outlined. I'm super excited to figure out how we can come up with a citywide project labor agreement ordinance. I've already started talking to the labor unions that have endorsed me in this race to start thinking that through. And I would love to be brainstorming with all of you at Somerville Stand Together, as well as thinking about community benefits agreements ordinances for citywide empowerment of our folks who end up negotiating with developers and making real concessions for working people.
Thank you, Charlotte. Next up is Justin Giola. Oh, Justin, unmute yourself.
Oh, excellent. Hi, I'm Justin Klakota, your friend and neighbor in Somerville. For 20 years, I've been part of our community as a renter, homeowner, vaccine researcher, climate advocate, and your Democratic State Committeeman. It would be an honor to serve as Somerville's next city councilor at large. As we all know, we're facing unprecedented challenges in the climate crisis that threatened our health and our economy, and not to mention that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So we have a lot of work to do as a community to make sure our economy not only is reopened, but that we actually reduce our carbon footprint to meet our carbon emissions deadlines to prevent the worst effects of climate change. We also need to invest more in our schools so that way we can prepare our students and our workforce for the green economy of the future. And so I completely agree with you on the need for more job training, particularly for greener jobs in a new economy. And I actually just had a column published in Dig Boston, and it's also coming out in Somerville Times and Somerville Journal.
1 minute.
Proposing that we expand our public education system to guarantee after-school programs and lifelong training for in-demand job skills, particularly with an emphasis on green tech and science, engineering, and mathematics. So I'd encourage you to read my column. But historically, we have educated twice as many students in our public schools than we do today. So enrollment is down 50%. So this city literally has the potential to educate thousands of additional residents than it does today. And that's a perfect opportunity for people to get more training in jobs in the green economy, as well as having the benefit of after-school program support, so students can spend more time in STEM as well, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, as well as have the benefit of childcare after school to make it easier to work with parents. So I completely agree with you that there's a need for more workforce development, and that we also need to invest in green tech citywide and bring our own infrastructure and some road to carbon neutral by 2030. So we can set
Justin.
Is that it?
That's it. Out of time. Next up is Eve Saichik. Eve.
Hi, thank you so much, Rand. So my name is Saichik. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a community organizer with the Boston Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm running for the city council at large. Yeah, I'm honored to be here tonight with Somerville Stands Together. I've been going to the rallies since it started, and I just think this is a phenomenal project. And I think that orienting it towards the Green New Deal and these shovel-ready projects is a really exciting proposition. And I also know that, we have to be willing to organize and fight the power of big real estate and the wealthy and well-connected, the billionaire class in Somerville and outside Somerville with its influence here, in order to achieve a Green New Deal on the scale that will actually meet our climate goals. And I know that Somerville Stands Together is a group that really understands that and understands the power of labor. We need a Green New Deal for housing in Somerville. We need a Green New Deal for our public schools, and we need a Green New Deal to recover from the COVID crisis, right? I'm proud to be endorsed by the Greater Boston Labor Council, and I'm filled with hope and excitement by the prospect of shovel-ready projects that the next council, united around a pro-worker agenda, can achieve together with you. And I am just absolutely over the moon with the prospect of digging in literally right away. I think there's huge potential to create good union jobs through these development projects that support green initiatives, and also by creating permanent union jobs in the city public works to really invest in green infrastructure and make the city work. And I think
15 seconds.
So I'll just leave it by saying that I'm all smiles tonight, and thank you so much for having us here today. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eve. Kristen Strezzo, you're next. Thank you.
Hello, I am Councillor Kristen Strezzo, one of your at-large councillors. I'm a single mom of 2 kids in the Somerville public school system. I live in affordable housing, so I understand the difficult decisions many Somerville families make to stay in our community. Since I've been in office, I've been working to prevent displacement, and it's been a priority. This has led me to focus on affordability, small business support, climate change, and environmental justice. I'm very pro-union. I've had the honor to receive 6 endorsements of unions and the Greater Boston Labor Council. Before I was sworn in, I was part of that STEP air quality program Ms. Wong was highlighting. It revealed disproportionately harmful air and noise pollution surrounding our low-income and BIPOC communities. I fought alongside our residents of sound barriers, and for years to come, and I will continue to. I commend SST for changing the carbon neutrality goal to 2035, which has to happen. It has to happen. And I'm excited to work alongside you to center racial justice and equity, bring unions, residents of color, women, and immigrants to the forefront of our climate solutions. I'm excited about the next steps. And I'm delighted that you're mentioning care infrastructure, because I've centered this in the post-pandemic recovery plan I introduced to the City Council
30 seconds.
in February of this year. Because families have been gaslit for far too long to make unrealistic accommodations. And I'm working hard every day to make sure that we're building us up community together. I'm delighted to continue on the work. I'm delighted to start the conversation with you or continue on the conversation and the next steps forward. And we've got a lot of work to do together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kristen. Jake, you're last but not least.
Hi, I'm Jake Wilson. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm running for one of the 4 at-large seats in this fall's election. Thanks for making me a part of this. First of all, let me just say I love the format you're using tonight. We tend to do enough talking, so it's refreshing to get to listen for a turn. I love the intersectionality that's being recognized here between climate justice, social justice, and the labor movement. It's really great to see Somerville Stands Together recognizing early on that it's crucial to bring in voices that all too often are left on the sidelines. And I hope that you'll continue to match actions to words and make the name of your organization a reality. Look, our world is on fire. We're going to be left with an uninhabitable planet because the wealthiest people on Earth didn't feel like diversifying their portfolios. And this isn't some problem for future centuries. This is impacting us right now. And I'm really fearful for my children. So if our federal and state governments aren't going to act, it falls on us locally to act. And I'm encouraged to see all the work that you've put into this. These aren't pie in the sky pipe dreams that you put together. These are things that really can be done. And the great thing about the Green New
1
Deal,
minute.
it isn't just principled, but it actually makes economic sense and will make us stronger and better as a society. So in addition to prioritizing battling climate change in my campaign, personally, I participated in the Public Space and Natural Environment Group as part of Summer Vision 2040. And I'm a member of Green and Open Somerville. My family is living our values and putting our money where our mouths are by driving a plug-in electric hybrid vehicle, fully insulating our home and installing a heat pump, and subscribing to the city's 100% local green CCE. And pretty soon we'll be installing solar panels with battery storage. So I'm excited about your plans, and I thank you for putting this together and for making me a part of it. And I'd love the opportunity to talk to all of you further after tonight's meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Jake. And just to be clear, although we share the last name, we're not related. So we've heard from the at-large candidates, and now, and I really want to commend everybody for sticking to the time limits. 2 minutes is way too short to be dealing with a complex issue like this, but you know, so many candidates and so little time. And so we want to do the same process with the ward candidates, beginning with Ward 2 candidate JT Scott. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, thanks, Rand. I'm not going to introduce myself a whole lot here. I'm just going to say I really appreciate the work here, especially the work being done to point out and fill in one of the blind spots that Somerville has repeatedly demonstrated in our planning processes. We haven't adequately considered the impact of our plans on disadvantaged communities, and we haven't focused our programs around rebuilding a strong working class in Somerville. I mean, the dramatic example, I mean, you mentioned it, is the way the current administration left behind over 100 Somerville residents and union members at the Royal Hospitality Laundry, right? We displaced that facility that employs them with absolutely nothing written into the requirements and covenants of that deal to relocate the business within Somerville or guarantee employment for these union members, predominantly minority working class residents. So this edit that you provided is a great step forward. I fully support all of these measures without reservation. And this needs more than just moral support. This needs knowledge for practical implementation and unwavering commitment to the cause. I will say one thing that is, I think, missing here, and that I personally want to see added, is a recognition that our sewer and stormwater infrastructure overhaul, it's a necessary step to protect both residents' homes and our critical life safety assets like fire stations, utilities, public health facilities. We have to protect those from the rising seawaters and worsening storms. And that is a decades-long project. Tens upon tens of millions of dollars. Ultimately, it's $1 billion problem. And it can and should be training and employing local workers, not contractors from out of town. This needs to get paired with the Climate Conservation Corps. This needs to be a massive jobs program in Somerville. We need to change our posture from a contract and bid standpoint to one where we hire needed technical expertise from outside and build these projects with local labor. We build a strong working class that way.
20 seconds.
So we can add capacity in DPW and SMEO. We can do it by writing stronger PLAs, but we have to commit to getting it done. And that's why, you know, I'm really excited about Ed Markey's climate bank that he just came to Somerville to announce in Ward 2. I'm excited about the Climate Conservation Corps, and I'm excited to work with y'all on supporting everything in here and adding more besides. Thanks.
Thank you so much, JT. Next will be Councilor Ben Mewen-Campen from Ward 3. Ben?
Thank you all very much. It's great to see you. My name is Ben Mewen-Campen. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Ward 3 City Councilor running for re-election. I'm honored to be here. I was first elected to the City Council in 2017, and we have done a lot that I am proud of, but I think that one of the things we are often not good on here in Somerville is on issues of labor, and specifically organized labor and workers' rights. That is something that I think we have a lot of room for improvement, I think, especially in the context of the enormous amount of development that has been and is continuing to pour into Somerville. We are at a moment where we are going to have a new administration and several new city councilors, and I think this is a moment with a lot of promise for us to reset the expectations of what we expect in Somerville. And I think that this is not going to happen without the work that all of you are doing these community coalitions are absolutely essential for that. So I'm particularly inspired that Somerville Stands Together is focusing so emphatically on climate issues. I think all of us agree that labor and climate and racial and social justice, that is exactly the coalition that we need. And I'm honored to be here, and I'm thankful for the work.
Well, we appreciate your brevity, Ben. Thanks for finishing on time. And next up is Tessa Bridge. Tessa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tessa Bridge. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 5. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. Much of my background has been in organizing and in working with unions, and I really see unions as an essential power in pushing for positive change and in holding our democracy accountable. And that couldn't be more important than when we're talking about climate, which is one of the greatest crises facing us at this moment in time. And I've made the Green New Deal and reaching carbon neutrality by 2030 a central part of my platform, and it's frankly part of the reason that I decided to run, because of how urgent this crisis is. I love what I've read and what I've heard here tonight. I particularly want to lift up the idea of moving up the timeline for reaching carbon neutrality and of setting those regular, measurable benchmarks. We can't wait until we get to the end to find out how we're doing. We have to be assessing along the way and holding ourselves accountable. And there's a real role for City Council to play in that. And I'm really excited to play that role. I also, as many folks up here have said,
1 minute.
See an incredible role for labor to be at the table, as well as community groups in this process. Somerville has a history of excluding labor from processes and decision-making, of privatizing, and of developing without prevailing wage. And I believe that the City Council needs to take a very strong stance on reversing that trend. And that couldn't be more important than as we think about a Green New Deal with all of the infrastructure changes that are necessary and coming to our city, including our stormwater and sewage systems as JT laid out, and much of the new development that we're going to have to do and the retrofitting we're going to have to do as a city to meet these goals.
20 seconds.
The transition to a net zero economy is really an opportunity to recenter working people and people with identities that have been marginalized. As we make this change, it's time for us to be in the driver's seat as we think about how we build in our city. And I also just want to lift up that care infrastructure piece. Couldn't be more important, something that we often forget about as we think about working people. We have to provide the wraparound services to support folks. That's what it means to be a community and to take care of each other. So all of this really resonates for me. I'm very excited to work with you all moving forward.
Thank you, Tessa. Next up is Todd Easton. Todd? Todd?
Thank you for the Somerville Stands Together for hosting this event tonight. I'm excited for the challenges and opportunities ahead with the incoming new administration and councilors that will be representing the city of Somerville. With new optics, with these new people on board, we will be able to look at best practices and audit the systems that are in place in the city to see how we're working and what we can do better. I've been involved in the city for over 20 years. I've raised my 3 kids here. All my work has been through community service. The fantastic thing about Somerville is our own community, people like yourselves that have these groups that are out there that are raising questions that hold City Hall accountable for the actions that they're doing. I look forward to being a part of that and continuing these dialogues to make sure that the residents of Somerville get what they need.
Well, are you done, Todd?
Yes, thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for also being so brief. And thank you again for being here tonight. And next up is Beatrice. Where are you, Beatrice? Unmute.
I'm right here. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Beatrice Gomez-Morcan. I'm an architect by training. I'm a LEED accredited professional. I've been studying green building for over 2 decades. I'm actually building the 5th largest solar array in Boston right now, putting 49 EVs and clearing fast chargers. I know I've been studying passive house forever, but enough about me. I'm really excited about the workforce development portion of this. I work with unions every day. I'm a woman of color and I don't see myself reflected out there. And I'm very excited to build this. I'm in a couple of groups where we're trying to increase the diversity of our workforce. I put it as my work goal to increase the diversity of our workforce as well. But I want to talk a little bit about your 2035 goal and training. How are we going to get to 2035 when it takes 5 years to license an electrician? When the average age of our workforce is around the 50s, so in about 10 years they're at retirement age. We really need to roll up our sleeves and work really hard on how to increase
1 minute.
this workforce. I actually have been talking to the unions about recruitment. The other challenge we have, it's sort of the bad connotation that construction has. We have people going to the tech schools and going to college and not into the trades. So we have a scarcity in the workforce, and I really look forward to working with you. I'm the one candidate who has hands-on experience with this on really building our workforce. I also want to point out something very quickly. We keep on talking about 93.
30 seconds.
We keep on talking about a 93 and the injustices. Let's take a look at Assembly Square and see the sea of parking we've created there. We are adding to the injustice, and we need to talk about how we stop that type of development. Finally, one last thing. Scientific research is one of the greatest drivers of greenhouse gas emissions. We're building research buildings in Union Square, and we have to hold them to high standards. Now, that's it. Sorry.
Thank you. And there's the bell. Now we'll go to Ward 7, and the first up will be Becca Miller. Becca, there you are.
Yeah, hi y'all. Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. My name is Becca Miller, and I'm running to be the next Ward 7 City Councilor. For the last couple of years, I've been organizing alongside low-income families and area farmers for food justice at the state level, and we've been able to win $47 million from the state for food access programming directly. At the same time, I've also been organizing with the Democratic Socialists of America for the Green New Deal, most recently as part of our Pass the PRO Act campaign, which, as you all know, makes it easier for workers to organize. I've centered the need for a Green New Deal with a 2030 carbon neutrality deadline in my policy platform and in conversations every day with voters on the doors. I'm running for Ward 7 because this moment demands bold, transformative governance that I think really is centered in my policy platform. I want us to pass a local hiring ordinance with benchmarks for women, BIPOC workers, immigrants, and to center youth in this Green New Deal for Somerville and adopt model labor standards as y'all have already clearly articulated. And I'm really ready to work side by side with the Greater Boston Labor Council, who has endorsed me in this race. I'm incredibly excited about your work and for the push that this entails. And I really think that we need to get started in this. There's really no time to waste. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Becca. And again, the last speaker is Judy Panetta Neufeld from Ward 7. Judy, unmute yourself.
Thanks so much, Rand, and thanks so much for Somerville Stands Together for organizing tonight and inviting us all to be here. Again, I'm Judy Panetta Neufeld, running for Ward 7 City Council. I am the daughter of 2 immigrants. My mom was born and raised in Mexico City, and my dad was born in a relocation camp in Belgium after his parents were immigrating after the Holocaust. I get my values of hard work and serving my community from my immigrant parents. In fact, my dad was a union member when I was a child in the late 70s and early 80s. He was a welder and was a part of the shipbuilders union in Los Angeles back in the day when welders didn't have much protection. And so my dad helped file one of the first class action lawsuits around asbestos protection for welders, and got so inspired by that work that he went on to become a lawyer. And so I watched that as a child, and I bring those values and that perspective with me on this campaign. I'm running because this moment demands bold leadership in Ward 7, and these neighborhoods around us deserve a city councilor with both the professional experience and lived experience to hit the ground running on day one, which I have lots of. I believe, that equity is not just a box to check on a to-do list. Did we do something equitably? We're done. It's a lens by which we should frame our work, and it's a lens by which I live and lead. The last 17 months, I've been working and leading the Immigrant Services Unit under our city's COVID operations, helping to bring critical resources to our immigrant families. Through that work, I've been connected to the Heat Health program and project from the city to make sure our immigrant families and our low-income neighbors are being safe when it comes to heat health, and helping to coordinate massive air conditioning donations last year to make sure folks stayed safe during the pandemic since they were all home. And I'll bring that perspective to the city council if elected. I also really appreciate in the documents you sent, there was a piece in there about how Somerville has so many plans. We have a climate forward plan and Vision Zero and Summer Vision and all these different plans. And there's a piece of this that we need to come together to figure out how we prioritize and hold ourselves accountable. So looking forward to continuing this work together.
Thank you, Judy. And that wraps up our first opportunity to hear from all of the candidates. And I just have to say, I'm blown away by all of you. How you're well prepared, you're articulate, you have vision, and whoever wins this election, the democratic process is going to move our city further forward, and we are going to be shovel ready. And I love as a lifelong union organizer, it's great to hear your vision of how organized labor, environmental activists, can come together, and we can bring the perspective of racial justice and economic inequality to preparing for the climate Armageddon that we're in right now. So obvious. We wanted to give everybody a chance to answer a very blunt question from Larry, and then and just wrap up. And it's ridiculous, but we're just going to give you 30 seconds to do it. It feels like Jeopardy or something like that, but I'll do the best I can to give you the 10-second warning, and we will be going if you don't mind, it'll be complicated if I try to do this in reverse order. So I'm going to just do it in the same order that we did, because I'm going to be crazy. So Larry Rich.
Hi, I'm Larry Rich. I'm a member of Our Revolution Somerville and Somerville Stands Together. I have a very simple question after having listened to the presentation of our further forward and shovel-ready approaches. Are these programs something that you can embrace?
That's the question. And we will begin with our at-large candidates with a 30-second response, starting with Willie Burnley. Willie?
Hi, I'm gonna take my 30 seconds. I've been arrested for the Green New Deal. I've had to flee from wildfires. I grew up with the effects of climate change, and I've seen how it hurts low-income folks and working class people and people of color. I absolutely support this, and I support it with a 2030 date. We need to be as fast as possible as we can to actually deal with the climate crisis, or the people living now, not the future generation. The people living now will live to see the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Charlotte?
Yes, I highlighted so much in this because I'm so excited to get into the council, get my hands dirty, and make sure we're able to implement all of the beautiful proposals you've lined out. As an organizer, the fights that I have fought with that have won the biggest were the ones where we were uncompromising in our values and our commitment to justice. And so as long as we are setting extremely high bars and fighting tooth and nail for working people, we will be able to give each other what we need instead of the crumbs that the current establishment gives us out.
Thank you. Justin, unmute yourself.
So combating the climate crisis is the main focus of my campaign, and I'm also a scientist by training. I actually have degrees in 4 sciences. So I see this issue not just from the politics, but from the challenges we meet in terms of scientific and technological advances we need to actually reduce our carbon emissions. I reached out to 20,000 people in Massachusetts in support of the Green New Deal for Massachusetts. And, we actually pushed successfully for the new climate law that passed this year that will provide a lot of the regulatory framework.
5 seconds.
And, I also mentioned, I already came out publicly in support of expanding our public education so that we can educate thousands of residents, both adults as well as after-school programs.
Thank you, Justin. Eve?
Yes. I have my yes card from CAST last night, and I am all in. We've seen the city councils of the past that will move mountains to help developers remake entire neighborhoods. Let's find out what happens when a city council is willing to move mountains for working people, and Green New Deal all the way.
Thank you, Eve. Kristen?
Absolutely. I embrace it. I've already started setting up the bones in my first term as city councilor, and I can't wait what the second term is going to do. I'm so excited to work alongside you. I'm just getting started. Let's do this together.
Jake?
Emphatic yes. That's it.
Oh, we love that kind of answer. And now we'll turn to the ward candidates. Again, beginning with Ward 2. City Councilor JT Scott. JT?
Yes, indeed. I already said it in my first statement. I'll say it again as many times as it takes. 100%.
Thank you, JT. Ben Ewan-Campen,
Yes.
another great example of brevity. And the next up would be Tessa Bridge, Ward 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this report that you all have put together shows that when you have working people at the table, when you have unions as a powerful body at the table, we get further. And so I think something I'm really committed to, in addition to, holding the line on all the things that you've laid out here, is continuing to hold a process like the one that you're holding here. We have to center working people and other folks who have been marginalized in our decision-making in our city. And we have to have the bold solutions that we need to meet the need of the crisis that we're in. So that kind of bold leadership is something that I'm absolutely committed to.
Todd?
I wholeheartedly support the work that you guys are doing. I think that you guys are representing the city as a whole and including as many people as possible. That being said, I appreciate you guys holding the city and the council accountable for the work that's going to be going forward. And that's important to make sure that we reach our goals that we set out for ourselves.
Thanks, Todd. Beatrice.
I'm going to say yes, but I'm the daughter of two scientists. So I'm going to say we need more. We need to help you out with the technical expertise to make this real. I'm a builder. It's about making it real. And you need, in order to make net zero buildings, you need a lot of technology, a lot of expertise. It takes a lot of people to put together a building. And I'm going to be the city councilor who's going to be out there trying to help you out to find these resources. I just talked to a decarbonization expert during my knocking of doors. We have amazing resources in the city that we can bring together. Thank you.
Okay, and next up would be Becca Miller. Becca?
Yes, absolutely. As an organizer, I'm ready to take this plan and bring it to the next level and share it with folks in Ward 7 and across the city to make sure that, we are getting the folks behind this plan that we need to hit this 2030 deadline that we've all embraced. So yes, and I look forward to working with y'all when I'm the Ward 7 City Councilor.
Thank you, Becca. And again, my brother from another mother, Jake Wilson. Oh, yeah, we've already done Jake. What's the matter? Sorry, Judy Panetta, Neufeld.
It's easy to get us mixed up.
Judy, you're definitely the sister from another mother.
Definitely, Rand. It's an honor. Absolutely, yes. As a woman of color, I grew up in a multicultural, multilingual, multiracial home. And so intersectionality is just a lens by which I lead and understand things through. So not only will I embrace these programs, I will be a champion and looking forward to working alongside all of you.
Hey, well, you guys in 30 seconds managed to say a great deal. And I really want to applaud all of the candidates tonight for being well prepared and thoughtful about this and to engage in a dialogue with the Somerville Stands Together. Just to wrap things up, I'm going to ask SMEA President Ed Halloran to conclude. Ed?
Thank you, Rand. Well, I'm impressed. This is like being home for me. Very warm feeling because there's so much support for unions and the things that we aspire to be, the things that we want. I'm really, really worried about my members, always worried about them, always concerned about them and their well-being, displacement, not being able to live in the city, just all sorts of different things that are going on right now. That has been a long battle to me and my members. So I'm supposed to say some really nice things about Somerville Stands Together. And I really, you guys have pretty much said it all in a sense, because you know what we do, you know who we are. And we really appreciate that. We're a grassroots organization, and these people really get it. Somerville Stands Together, they get it, they figure it out. And that's why since its inception, I was there and I was involved, and I'm, a labor person my entire life. So they've not only helped my union achieving our goals, but they've worked with many other groups in the city on wage theft and workers center that they have right now, which I think is wonderful. The rural hospitality, once again, trying to help them from displacement. And long before the pandemic, they were working on this presentation even before this whole thing, took place. So they've really, really plugged into the whole thing. But I will ask one thing of everybody. I've been to a lot of these. I've done, over the years, we've sponsored some of these, and we had these forums, and we love doing them because we think we have to get it out there, But please don't forget about us. I know you probably won't, but I just have to ask that question because we need you. So I think you're all wonderful, and I think we're going to have a really great leadership up there at City Hall. And thank you so much. And for those of you who are not involved with Somerville Stands Together, I'd love you to be part of it. And we have a meeting coming up on August 23rd at 4 o'clock. I know you're going to be really busy, but remember, we do it every month. And I want to thank you all very much for allowing me to speak. And I want to turn it back over to Rand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for all the work that you've done to build Somerville Stands Together, bringing labor, community, environmental, social, and racial justice groups together in our community. It's been an exciting project. I'm confident that the democratic process is going to take Somerville forward with really a great roster of candidates. This will be replayed on Facebook. You can go to our website. I posted the link there. A number of candidates and some people from the public posted some very interesting and good questions. Members from the Somerville Stands Together Coalition will be following up on some of those, and we'll save the chat. And we are at 7:22, just 2 minutes over our allotted time. Thank you very much for joining us. Good luck in the preliminary and/or the final, and we'll see you at the celebrations on November. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. See you in the field.